This is the Strength Beyond Fitness podcast
a Build Body Fitness production brought to you by Coach Luis
and Coach Renee, where we talk about simple principles to train your mind, transform your body, and maybe even change your life.
All right, welcome back to another episode with Mr. and Mrs. Coach. What's up, guys?
Hi, friends.
How we doing today?
Well, I'm doing okay, I'll be honest. I'm doing just okay, but I'm pretty excited about this topic. Those who follow me on social media may have known that I recently cut my caffeine in half. I noticed that my intake was getting a little bit too high. Like I was taking enough that probably could have given a grown man a heart attack. So we cut the caffeine in half, and you know what? It's about a week in and we're doing better. I'm not going to be like, I feel like a new person, but you know what? We're doing better than I was, Monday.
You know what? That's really good to do occasionally. I think learning that is really good. If you know me, I try to cycle my pre-workout, not caffeine as much, because I don't really drink caffeine a ton outside of pre-workout, except right now I'm drinking a Red Bull, but it's not a very consistent thing that I do.
You're really good about making sure that you don't get too reliant upon it, because that's a really tempting thing when you try pre-workout and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I have all the energy. And especially me, I tend to build up kind of a tolerance really fast. Mm-hmm. And if I get to the point where it's like I cannot work out unless I have pre-workout, then it's like, hey, we need to take a step back. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not the pre-workout. Like, you got the power in you.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, caffeine, it's not something that I wake up and I absolutely need. And I can go a whole day without it, still feel productive. But today, I pretty much passed out on the floor doing some work. And
it was kind of hilarious. I came in from a session. He was out cold asleep. He was asleep. I checked. It was just sleeping. He wasn't, no medical emergency.
I was tired. So, we said, hey, we got to film a podcast today. We have a really good topic, but I need to be in my A game. So that's why I got a little drink on me. But I cannot believe it's been a week. That is.
It's been a full week.
It's gone by really fast. So
and given,
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. The amount that I'm having, I think, would be other people's average. But for me, it feels like a really big cut. I'm a big believer that when it comes to caffeine, especially if you're used to a high amount, going cold turkey isn't always the best answer. Like even cutting it by, 50, 100 milligrams can make a huge difference. Like you don't have to be all or nothing in order to find results. Which will sound really funny with the topic that we're talking about today, which we're going to be talking about knowing what your non-negotiables are and how to find them. And so this inspiration actually came. I saw a reel while just, scrolling through Instagram, and someone was saying like, these are the habits of successful people. This is what you have to do to be successful. And he was saying how you wake up early, you journal, you meditate. He reads 1 to 2 books. I think it was a month, but he might have said a week. Mm-hmm. And it was like all of these things where it's like, that's really nice for you. I'm happy that works for you. But that might not be the best non-negotiable for other people. And so it kind of begs the question, if that's not the best, then what is the best? And spoiler, like most answers to anything health related, there's a lot of, there are some absolutes, but for the most part, there are a lot of it depends. And so I want to dive deeper into kind of like what our non-negotiables are individually as a couple and how we've helped clients find theirs. But
I love that, because non-negotiables, another word for them is boundaries.
Boundaries.
Yeah.
I use that word rather than restrictions.
Right. And, I come from a really entrepreneurial mindset. The mindset, like, hey, you give me a motivational talk, a motivational speech, a motivational person, I get fired up. And in those motivational speaks and all those entrepreneurs and business owners and those really successful people, they all will agree and say, yes, you need to have a early morning routine. You need to have this step-by-step process every single morning so that you can achieve the success. And it's really crazy because have met some very successul people that are like, no, I don't follow any of that. but you go to a conference and that's all they're saying that you need to follow. And you get out of it like, oh, okay, tomorrow my alarm is set 4:30 a.m. I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna take a cold shower, I'm gonna work out for 60 minutes, then I'm gonna read a book, then I'm gonna make breakfast, I'm gonna do this, and then you do it and you're like, yeah, this is the best thing ever. And then you do day 2. You're like, yes, this is great. Day 3, holy cow, I am so exhausted. I don't know if I can do day 3. Okay, I'm gonna do day 3, and you just drag and drag, and then you do day 4, and then day 5 you're like, okay, I did 4 days this week, I'm gonna skip day 5, and then you go kind of downhill from there.
And it can turn into this nasty cycle of you just kind of beating yourself up and just blaming, like, I just didn't have enough willpower, I just didn't have enough motivation, didn't have enough drive. And while that could be an aspect of it, it was maybe you made a jump too quick. And we can use the example of 75 hard. And I do believe there are some people where they have found success on 75 hard, but it really depends on what they were doing beforehand. If you're just on the couch, you know, your diet may not be the best, your sleep is all over the place, and then you're going to decide, I'm going to work out twice a day, I'm going to have cold showers, I'm going to read, I can't remember how many pages it told you to read a day, but
you need 2 workouts, I believe. One's indoor, one's outdoor. Yeah, you need to have like do a cold shower.
Read 10 pages of a nonfiction book. You're supposed to take a progress photo every day for 75 days. And then if you skip a day, you start over, which is basically telling you all the stuff you did beforehand doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I know there are some people where it's like they're of a certain discipline and mindset of where, for the most part, they're kind of already following that. They're just bringing it to the next level. But if your lifestyle is nowhere close to that, it can turn into an even more harsh cycle of, I'm the problem, it's me, I just didn't have enough control. And it's like, maybe that was just too big of a jump for you.
And I think that is so important to recognize early on, because it's true. We can't just say some people that have done 75 hard had success. If it was only some, it wouldn't be such a big deal. Yes, a lot of people that have done 75 hard have had success, but 75 hard comes from a culture of somebody that fitness was very ingrained in their life. It comes from a group aspect culture as well, where it's like, hey, we're all as a gym gonna do 75 hard. I believe I see it more from the CrossFit community, but because I think it came from First Form. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep. So it came from First Form. Yeah. Andy Frisella, who entrepreneur, podcaster. He's the owner of a supplement company. For those who don't know what First Form is, he actually is not a personal trainer, but he's within the health.
And I mean,
community.
First Form is most in the bodybuilding community as well, but I think because CrossFit is such a competitive mindset, they've taken it on as well. But those people that do it, they're already in a lifestyle of hard, and sometimes but it's looked into it like, I want to jump into this, having had no experience, because I think it's time to change my life. And now I believe that's where the numbers are really small on those that find success. Those that never tried it out before at all, very, very small number come out of it saying, I did lose the weight that I want to. My body now has the physique that I wanted. I have the discipline now. But a lot of those people there's a lot that do fall out of it, especially if you mess up or you skip one day, you have to start over. That could be like 6 months, 75 days. You're on day 40, 50. You forget one day. You start over. Then back again, you're day 40, 50, 60. Something happens. You got to start over. And now you've been on this like hamster wheel.
I think it's the equivalent of, say, if you are someone who doesn't exercise, you've never been to a gym, and then you decide you're going to run a marathon, and you sign up and you run a marathon, or you try to. So instead of even maybe just walking outside for 10 minutes, striving for a 5K, you go and you try to run a marathon, and then you wonder, what's wrong with me? Why couldn't I do it? And it's just a different training level. And that's not to say you would never be capable of doing it. It's just, are you setting yourself up for success? And so weirdly enough, I remember in I want to say it was my sophomore year of college. There was this infamous study that everyone talks about, which is the marshmallow study, where it talks about willpower. And you might be imagining it. What they did was, I think they had a group of about 90 kids. They sat them in a room with a marshmallow. And they said if you wait for like, I think an hour or
they're given us a time to wait.
A specific time to wait. If you wait this X amount of time, you'll get 2. And there were some that were able to control themselves and some that weren't.
Yeah, it was in the invitation of you can have it now or you can wait and have 2.
Interesting enough, that was actually debunked a couple of years ago. I want to say that was in like 2018. I'll have to double check. But they redid the study, and then instead of just 90 kids, they did 900. And something they noticed was there were so many factors that you didn't consider with those kids, such as if, say if they came from a lower income family, or maybe if they had some sort of attention issues. It wasn't just the kid lacked willpower. It was what was the environment that they came from. And that's a super important thing, that when you are trying to consider what your non-negotiables are, what is your physical environment that you're in? What's the emotional environment that you're working within? Your support, your understanding. And so I'll start off first with mine. I mean, these are my absolute non-negotiables that I don't venture out of.
I gotta start thinking of what mine are if you're saying yours.
I'm giving you time.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And so, like I mentioned before, I love caffeine. I love caffeine, whether it's Dr. Pepper, pre-workout, Alani, Amino Energy. But a big rule that I have, and this is one I'm very stubborn about, is absolutely no caffeine on an empty stomach. And I learned that the hard way when I was working as a personal trainer, I would say, felt like 60 hours a week. And I would have, my caffeine in the morning. I'd have my energy drink, wouldn't eat until about like 2:00, have a snack. And then by the time I got home, I was absolutely famished. But then I was like, why does my stomach hurt all the time? Why am I nauseous all the time? And like, we're going to call out the obvious. Yeah, caffeine can be a hunger suppressant, but that doesn't mean your body needs less calories. And so a new rule that I have is like, if I'm going to consume caffeine, I can't have it until I've eaten something. And that's turned into typically like a nut butter sandwich or an English muffin with an egg. It's something that's simple.
Yeah.
Another one that I have is prioritizing protein and fiber. And that's pretty general, but it's an easier rule to follow and say if you're traveling a lot, if you're stressed. In addition to that,
I think travel is so important to have a non-negotiable around that.
And we'll jump into that.
Okay.
Don't you worry. If we eat out, I typically have a smoothie, 1 to 2 servings of fruits and veggies daily. I need to have at least 2 big meals a day. Which sounds weird because you're saying, oh, you're skipping meals. No, they need to be 2 big quality meals. I might not have time for 3, but you better believe those 2 are going to be big. And then trying to get more sleep. And so I like that you brought up a certain point. With all of these non-negotiables, the way I came up with it was, what can I apply in every single one of my environments? And when I say environments, you want to think of, 1, what is the perfect environment that you live within? It's the ideal one, the one where you're motivated, the one where you have time, the one where you have money. The one that might not be a reality, but, it's that person that bought spinach the day you felt, really ready for those goals. And then you consider, okay, what does my environment look like when, it's a busier day with school pickup, when I have extra clients, or even when I have anxiety, when I have stress, when I don't feel good. You want to think about those different environments, what it looks like during date night, traveling, holidays. Each and every one of these non-negotiables I can apply in each and every one of those. Even, for example, I have one that's morning workout can't start without a warm up and mobility. All of these are relatively simple. Notice how I didn't say, if you don't do this, you owe me 20 push-ups. Like, all of them are pretty plain. And I know you said you're trying to think of yours, but I think an easy one that we have as a couple is we try to eat mostly homemade food.
Yeah.
I'd say we at most eat out like twice a month. And if we do, it's a place that we've been to, we've looked up the menu, we're making sure we have protein. If we do venture out and get a more fun meal, then like I said, I'm making sure we have a smoothie, we have fruits and veggies. And then we always try to prioritize movement over medicine when possible. That's not saying that we're anti-medicine. It's, am I sore because I haven't moved in a while, or am I sore due to something else?
Right.
Will movement help me feel better?
I know I absolutely love those because the the fact that you have created these non-negotiables for yourself have placed you where you're at right now. You're a mom of 2 kids, and I think also you've learned differences between the first kid and the second kid, and those non-negotiables have helped you maintain the quality of life that you wanted within like your own health. And you don't just start giving excuses. Oh, I have 2 kids. I'm, always tired. I got this going on, and etc. It's like, yeah, no, you have those things. You are super tired and stuff, but you make sure that you can take care of those 2, 3, 4 simple things that at the beginning they probably weren't super simple, because sometimes simple becomes hard. It's so easy that we just don't do it. But you're now like in this really good habit, especially like smoothies. Like smoothies after, a day that we go out to eat, those have become way more non-negotiable within, I would say, maybe the last 8 months within our life than they were prior to that. It was like we would say that, but then like, oh, we didn't have this. We'd talk the next day like, oh man, we didn't have the smoothie, and we thought about it and we didn't do it. But then we went out to, because we don't eat out a ton. We were able to then stop and reevaluate the next time we ate out. Like, okay, no, we need to have the smoothie. And then we had it. And then another time, okay, we need to have the smoothie now. Then it became a nice little habit. And it's seriously happening every single time.
And it's a really simple and easy thing. And that's what I kind of had to play around with a lot, because when, you're making goals, we're told to create SMART goals, ones that are like specific, measurable. What was it? I'm suddenly forgetting everything right now. Gosh.
What do you mean? Where's this from?
So they talk about it in, let's see, when you are trying to create a SMART goal, it's a, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely.
Got it.
So basically, don't just put out there like, I want to be healthier. Like, okay, that's great. Like, how would you like to be healthier? Is there a certain BMR? Like all of that. And so typically when we create goals, like you want to make them specific, but sometimes we make them a little bit too much in the beginning, if that makes sense. And so an example is like, I remember postpartum in my brain, I was like, I'm going to work out every single day. And you saw me postpartum my second time around of, sometimes that was not realistic. And so it's like, okay, how do I adjust it to where it's like, I'm going to find an intentional way to move 15 minutes a day. And I'll give more when I can give more. And when I felt like that was really easy and obtainable, it was either, okay, how do I make this, how do I level up, or how do I add another habit to it?
Right.
And what's interesting enough is, and I saw this quote on, what's his name? I Know Forrest on Instagram. Phenomenal. He's CrossFit based. He's hilarious. He has a cute bulldog.
He's the gym owner.
The gym owner.
Oh yeah, he's hilarious. You guys, he's not sponsoring this, but you need to go look him up.
No, but if you want to be on really here, I want to be your friend.
His stuff is really good.
One of the things he said in his post yesterday was how fitness is an afterthought and nutrition is a last-minute reaction. The result is inconsistency and a feeling of failure when it comes to health. I want you guys to really take a moment to consider that statement of, are you treating your fitness, your goals, nutrition, all of that as an afterthought, a last-minute reaction, and just hoping that willpower is what drives you through? And so this is where I want to kind of turn it over to you. You've heard my non-negotiables. What do you feel, kind of reflecting on your own, have been, maybe they aren't, set in stone, but habits that you've noticed of like, oh yeah, this is something I'm stubborn about. Like I'll say one for you. You are very much like, your mobility is priority.
Yeah. Non-negotiables for me, I think I definitely have been developing them over the year since we've had our daughter. There's been so many changes that they threw me off because they honestly weren't set in stone. And I'll give an example, was my workout routine. my workout routine completely because I didn't have any non-negotiables. I started to prioritize our business, which basically just started a few months before we had her. And there was so much within that. Then I started to prioritize taking care of her and you and our son, and then the life that we have, and my exercise non-negotiables, or because I didn't have non-negotiables, they took a toll. And I'd say now, this is kind of crazy, but one of my non-negotiables now, it's training a minimum of 3 times a week. And I have a program. It's a powerlifting program that for me it's 3 times a week. I need to make sure that I am fulfilling my end of my program. And if I do the 3 times and I feel like I have energy for, I'll do something else. I'll do like an arm, a hypertrophy for something else. I have fun with it. I'll do some Olympic lifting, but that has been one. And I have seen more results in the way my energy has changed and the way my strength has developed when I decided to make it a non-negotiable within the last like 4 months to do 3 bare minimum. And it's been phenomenal. And there's a lot of weeks in a row where I'll only train 3 times a week.
I feel like this is the most consistent that you've been to, because I remember when you first made the goal of you're going to work out 5 days a week.
Oh yeah, no.
And week 1 was, it wasn't too bad. You were excited.
Yeah.
Week 2, that
I was
rough.
trashed. I mean, between the workouts that I was doing, I got too excited and I was doing like doubles as well, and then waking up really early for our morning sessions. And we were still at the point where we were doing evening sessions, so also working on the evening. It was just definitely way too much. I guess another non-negotiable for me that has helped me out a lot is my breakfast has to be 2 things. If I have time and I'm motivated to cook, I'll make myself some eggs, keep it very simple with my breakfast. If I don't have time, it's oatmeal. It's my power oatmeal that I do.
What does your power oatmeal look like?
So it's about 1.5 cups of oatmeal. It has flax seeds. I go crazy on flax seeds and chia seeds. I don't measure them. I just throw them in there. I add a little bit of honey, some, what is it called? Almond butter. Sometimes I add a little bit of vanilla. Sometimes I don't. But anyways, Carb Master milk, which is 0 fat, 0 carbs, and about 19 grams of protein, I think it is. And then a little bit of cinnamon. And I don't heat. Sometimes I heat it up. Sometimes I just eat it straight cold. But those 2 are non-negotiable for me, because if I don't have any of those 2, then either I don't eat. It's like if I didn't have that as a rule, either I don't eat because I get caught up with work, or I'll have something else that is more fun and more enjoyable, but it has its time and place, like chocolate chip pancakes. Freaking love them. I will never say, hey, don't eat chocolate chip pancakes, but they have their time and place.
Remember when you had that cereal phase?
Yes, that was terrible.
So like that, we went hard with the cereal.
Yeah, and it was because I was so busy, and I thought to myself, this is the easiest thing. This is the easiest thing. In a way, it was the easiest thing, but it was not the easiest thing that would benefit my life and my body. So the easiest thing was now recognizing, okay, do I have 20 minutes real quickly to actually make myself some eggs? And I usually do eggs and
you have like a chicken breakfast sausage.
Yeah,
sweet potatoes.
Yep, sweet potatoes. I do all that. Or if I don't have the 20 minutes, it only takes me 5 minutes to make the oatmeal. The oatmeal, yeah. So that's one. And I think I have a few other non-negotiables that they're in like the back of my mind, but just right now they're not coming to me. But I'll say one, I'm just like you. I will not have not just caffeine, but pre-workout in an empty stomach. That's an absolute no. The pre-workout and caffeine is just so strong. I don't want to put my stomach lining through that high acidity, through those ingredients. So I want to make sure I always have something in my stomach before I have any pre-workout. And I remember about a week ago or 2, I had pre-workout with an empty stomach, and that was the worst.
Yeah, no, that was a chaotic day
Yeah,
too.
we don't need to talk about that.
And so more than likely too, you're probably gonna think of a few more as the podcast goes on. You
I
get
will.
to you get to chirp in.
Yeah, I'm like the type where I'm like, oh, I remember this, and oh, what is it? And then 20 minutes later or 10 minutes later or while I'm sleeping, I'm like, oh, this is what I was thinking about. And
I
it's
love
too
those.
late.
The middle of the night, like you think of the perfect response, so you remember, oh yeah, so and so was in that movie. And so, in going back to what you were saying, is you are finding simple ways to make your life easy. But just because something is simple doesn't make it easy to execute. And I think that's a
Exactly.
big misconception, because if you think about fitness and nutrition, it is relatively simple. It is relatively easy. Calories in versus calories out. You move a little today, you feel a little better tomorrow. But it's the actual execution that is difficult. And what makes it difficult is, you know, it could be a plethora of things. We talked earlier about your environment. It could be something as simple as like, do you have access to certain foods? I mean, this sounds silly. This isn't as drastic, but, you know, finding eggs right now is really doggone hard. So even to a more extreme level of maybe you don't have access to higher quality foods. It could be another.
Well, that let's use that really quick as an example. I just said one of my breakfasts is eggs. What if I just only relied on eggs as a breakfast? And right now, yes, eggs are really hard to find. I mean, we went to Trader Joe's a few days ago to look for some eggs, and it was completely cleaned out. And then, you know, the other stores are just ridiculous, like $12
For
for like a dozen.
6.
Yeah. So what if what if that
What if that was your go-to
my
food? What was your
go-to,
backup?
yeah, exactly. What would I do? Either I'd be like, okay, well, I'm not gonna eat, which is the worst thing I can possibly do, or I can be like, I'm just gonna go to Starbucks and get I was gonna say McMuffin, but that's
They
not
have
Starbucks.
egg bites.
But yes, one of those.
Oh, another example that I've seen is people are pushed to eat only organic. And while, you know what, I'm not gonna diss on organic. But then there's a thought process of, if I can't eat organic, then I might as well not try.
I am gonna diss an organic, and organic does not mean healthy, but
That I will agree with.
it is, you know, if it's available and it makes you feel better, go for it. But it is not a requirement within your health life to only pick organic.
The
And that's all I'm
organic
saying.
Oreos are still Oreos,
Yes.
but Oreos are good.
They're also vegan.
They technically are. They technically are.
Yeah.
And diving deeper into environment. So one is like, who are you surrounded by? Say if you're trying to live a healthier way, but, you know, we'll use the example of a mom. Most kids have had that chicken nugget phase where they only want chicken nugget and mac and cheese. So you're trying to eat very specific, very healthy, but then, you know, your kid didn't eat all the chicken nuggets. There's that like couple bites left over of mac and cheese. You don't want to throw that away. And it's like creating the boundaries before you're faced with the current situation. One of the really great tips that I know Forrest also gave on that post was focus on the habit and not the result. And that is, you know, a really hard thing to apply, because we get so lost in what you want that you kind of forget about the stuff leading up to it. I had a conversation with one of my clients this morning, and I appreciate her vulnerability in letting me know. She's like, I just want to be skinnier faster, which, you know what? It totally makes sense. But then in focusing so much on wanting to lose weight quicker, she was losing the habits that we were working on establishing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, she was telling you that she's losing her appetite because now her stress is taking over, because her stress is like, I want to look skinnier faster. And when stress takes over, you lose a lot of things. Like, you lose appetite, you lose sometimes even the motivation, you start hitting a wall against yourself. So you cannot let yourself go to that. One really quick thing I want to basically rewind back to is what he said in that quote, that you start losing sight of the habit. Well, the problem is that it's not that you start losing sight of the habit, is that you don't work towards building the habit. And you hear like, oh, build the bulletproof, you know, your bulletproof morning routine, or your bulletproof knees, or whatever bulletproof. But I don't want to be so cliche. Like, you need to build a form of bulletproof habits. And this is where these boundaries these non-negotiables are going to help you, because it's not just one non-negotiable, it's multiple layers of non-negotiable, multiple boundaries. One falls, you have another one to rely on. And that is what's really going to help you out, and that's what we want for everybody that we work with in person, like directly come in contact with and we're working with. And also, you guys are hearing this that have probably never met us but are tuning in and are listening to this, and it's how can we help you build these like small and simple foundations for the best success and the happiest success, where you don't feel that stress, that anxiousness, and you don't allow that to take over.
I'm going to jump into another cliche because you said the word foundations. And I want people to start seeing these non-negotiables as just your foundations, your baseline. And they're more or less, think of it as like the bare minimum of habits that are so easy they become basically mindless, and creating that really strong foundation first. And so, if you try to rush through a foundation and a house, eventually you're going to have to go back and you're going to have to recreate it. And it doesn't matter how pretty that house is, how beautiful the shiplap is and the windows. And if it has a bad foundation, it's going to crumble. And so think of these as what are a couple, or even just one, what is one foundation you can build on making even stronger? So maybe you can't commit to working out 5 days a week. Luis used the example of, okay, he's going to get really good at 3 days. 3 days sounds easy. He executed it, and there's some weeks where it is easy. Some weeks where you definitely have to work harder for it, but it's doable within your current circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll use the caffeine for an example of caffeine on an empty stomach. Like, there are some mornings I just want to go grab my can of energy drink and I don't want to make anything. I don't want to go to the kitchen. I don't want to think about having to wash another dish. But if I want to have my caffeine, then I have to have something in my stomach.
And honestly, I think the best way you've learned that is because you've been applying it. Let's be honest, you've had the times where you woke up and immediately you're like, I need a headache. Most people don't know that you wake up with headaches. And
I wake up with migraines.
Okay, sorry. You wake up with migraines.
They're awful.
Yeah. So sometimes that migraine is really hard, and you have woken up and it's like you go straight for that sip. And the crazy thing is, like, you don't need the whole bottle. You just need just a few sips. It's crazy how caffeine immediately starts to really help you out. Not just in that migraine way, but just helping
even
you
with focusing.
Yeah, helping you with focus, especially so early in the morning. But you've had those mornings where you didn't eat I had
an empty stomach.
Yeah, you had an empty stomach.
I felt awful.
Yeah,
later.
and you recognized it. And I think that's the most important thing, is because if you don't recognize the difference, there's no learning with it. And I don't want to like keep going back to that 75 hard, but if you do something super, super good for 20, 30 days, and obviously you build some good habits and stuff, but then you have that one that you mess up and then you have to start over again, all you're thinking about is like the way that you failed, and you don't think about like the difference, like what you learned out of that 20, 25 days, 30 days, whatever. But here, you're telling yourself, oh, dang it, today I didn't have anything before drinking my energy drink, and I'm not feeling super great. So now I really know that tomorrow I need to do that. I need to make sure I have my almond butter sandwich, and bam. And if I need to make it tonight and put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the refrigerator, that's what I'm going to do. So now it's even more mindless when I wake up.
And I think when you're focusing on the habit, you're really honing in on like, what is the why behind, like, why am I doing this and how is it going to help me get to my result? And so I think it's fine going back to 75 hard. All of those individually can be great things to help you be more successful. But if you don't understand how they're going to help you find more success, then really what good is it doing for you? Using the example of a cold shower, y'all are going to think I'm sensitive after this. With my rheumatoid arthritis, I have to be really careful with cold. And so this whole cold water, cold plunges that everyone's all about right now, I've had people push it on me and I've been like, no, I'm not doing it. If you find success with it, I know there's research that backs in. There are benefits, but it's not beneficial to me. When we went to Utah, you saw how awful I felt the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
My joints were aching. I didn't have energy. I was even more spacey. I have a really hard time in the cold. So the 75 hard aspect of just taking cold showers, if I started my day with the cold, I wouldn't
Your day would be over.
my day would be over.
Yeah.
I'd have to go lay down in bed and instantly warm myself up and hope
Well,
that I'd recover fast.
I mean, I had a client that she had EDS, an hypermobility EDS, and I can't be like, well, hey, what you need to do is take a cold plunge, because that made it worse. Whenever it was cold, she was aching. I mean, she used to live in, I want to say, Wisconsin, and she moved to Arizona because of the purpose of the warm weather. But imagine nowadays, all you're seeing is, okay, you need to do this, and if you don't take the cold shower in the mornings, you're not going to be successful. And it's like, oh, well, she can't physically do that. It's not going to help her out at all. And we need to start recognizing those things. Like, yes, it sounds phenomenal. It works for you. Let's figure out what works for this individual.
The actual individual.
Actual individual. I mean, my gosh, Tommy's going to be like the most popular person in this podcast.
We love Tommy.
I know. There was one time where he was in some joint pain. I think it was low back pain. He actually had gone to Utah, and some things came up. He missed a few workout days out there, then came back down, and then we started a new cycle of training. When we were squatting, and he just, because he had missed several days and whatever, his squat like ended up hurting his back. And then I told him, like, hey, the best thing I think you need to do right now is take an ice bath. And he looked at me like, what the heck? I'm not doing that. He does not like the cold. Not that he cannot be in the cold. He just doesn't like it. And I was like, all right, fine, that's okay. And then his back pain kind of got a little bit worse. He was doing mobility, but he wasn't seeing the improvement. I was like, do the ice bath. I promise you, it's at least going to help you out. It's going to be a good form of recovery for you. For him, it was good. And he did it. And I told him, okay, awesome. Let's have you do another one in the next few days. And it helped him out. And then he hasn't had any issues, but he also didn't just do the ice bath. He did other things with it. But I know that was a big contribution to helping him out. But I couldn't do that to my other client that I had. I couldn't be like, well, your joints hurt, your low back hurts, your hypermobility is affecting you today. Go take an ice bath. No.
Well, I think there's a difference too of, hey, try this out, see if it'll help you feel better, versus if you try it out and you don't feel better, it's because you're weak and you didn't try hard enough.
Yeah.
And that's it's a terrible thing. You just didn't try hard enough.
Yeah.
And it's okay, what can you physically do? And then two, like, you should not be forcing yourself to do stuff that you hate. A really common thing that I've seen is people will, look online and be told like, oh, running's one of the best way to burn calories, so I'm going to make myself a runner.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many times I've had someone tell me I'm a runner. Do you like it? No.
Then
how often do you do it? Not really. So are you actually a runner?
Right.
And it's they want to be one because that's a fast way to get their results. But it's like, how about we get you to your results by something you can do consistently and you don't hate?
And actually, it's not that it gets them faster to the results. That's what they heard. That's what was
being pushed
to them. And they went and were like, I need to do this every single day. And then the days that they don't, then they realize it's not sustainable. They stopped, they slowed down, and then they stopped running. And then they're back to where they started. And it's because, once again, there wasn't those like boundaries set. And I remember one of my most successful clients that I had a few years ago, Adam. He had just had a son. He started a new job, and right before I started working with him, he thought he needed to just go to the gym and lift super heavy. Like, that's all he thought, because that's a little bit of what he was seeing. So he set a goal prior to working with me. It was going to the gym and just lifting heavy. And he realized that was not sustainable. First, it was exhausting him on top of just having a kid. It was with his new job, new travel, and everything. It was just not what he needed. And he realized, hey, I need some help. And, Luckily, I started working with him. He started working with me through the old gym that we were at. But when I run him on the program and told him, like, let's focus on this first, these movements, getting really good with them. You're working with me twice a week. Let's get you working on your own just 2 times a week. We don't need 7. We don't need 6. And even when you go by yourself, it doesn't need to be all or nothing when you're walking in. And he had one of the best transformations overall, like in his relationship with exercise, with the physical transformation, nutrition mindset, all those different things, because they were no longer this, if I skip it, I need to start over again.
It was less about trashing himself and more about keeping something sustainable.
Exactly.
And so maybe you're listening to this right now and thinking, well, great, those are yours, but what about me? So this is why I want to challenge you to kind of look inward and see what are some non-negotiables that you've already established for yourself. They might not be healthy habits. They might be healthy habits. A simple one, like I keep referring back to caffeine, is do you start your morning every single day with your cup of caffeine or driving through Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts? To you, that may be a non-negotiable where it's like that is an absolute and it's going to happen. Another non-negotiable may be like you're going to have your weekly family dinner to Olive Garden or somewhere where it's like it's just an absolute. Another way of seeing it is, what are your priorities? The first thing that you will not bend over for. And it's like, okay, how can we make fitness fit within the equation? A common analogy that you may or may not have heard of is, imagine that you have a vase. When you fill up that vase, you have a couple of rocks, and those rocks are your priorities. So you have one rock that is exercise, one rock that might be, spending time with a significant other, another rock,
sleep.
And then you think the vase is full, right? Nah. Then you take a bag of sand and you pour the sand in there and it kind of fills in the little spaces. Then from there, you think the vase is full? Nah. You're able to pull water into it. And this isn't to say that you need to cram your day full of everything and anything. But if you tried reversing the order, it'd make it a lot harder. If you pour in the water, then you pour in the sand, and then you put in the rocks, you wouldn't be able to fit in as much. And so what you need to do is really think about what is your strategy of how you're going to accomplish what you want to accomplish. It doesn't mean that you need to make a plan and have to have the perfect plan, because if we're being honest, when you make a plan, you do have to account for the days where you might fall short. It's, what can I plan on doing each and every single day, whether I'm home, whether I'm out, that I know for a fact that I can do this bare minimum, and make those your absolutes. And it might start off with just, 1 to 2 things. One of my clients, we started her off nice and simple. She started off with caffeine every morning. And so it's like, okay, you're going to have your avocado toast with 2 eggs. Super simple. And while that might not seem like a really big change, it got her into the habit of recognizing, like, okay, when I eat in the morning, now I'm going to honor these hunger cues. I'm going to have more energy during the day. I'm not going to have a midday crash. And then I'll feel like I have energy to actually do a workout later. It wasn't, hey, we're going to make all these changes right now. It's, I'm going to get really good at 1 to 2, and I'm going to build upon these things. And this doesn't mean you need to have a long list of non-negotiables of, this is my life rule, and if I don't follow this, I'm, a failure.
Well,
it's easy.
It is easy. And one thing with her, with that client that you had, is one of her things that she thought she needed to do was do 60 to a little over 60-minute workouts. I think she was really thinking like
she was doing 90-minute workouts.
Yeah, 90-minute workouts. That's what she thought, like.
So she would be good for like 2 weeks, and then she wouldn't do anything. And it was just a cycle of, she thought she had to be trash.
And when you were talking to her, she told you how, like, she does not like doing 90-minute workouts, and she just doesn't want to think about doing that. And then she turned it into non-negotiable, where she's like, I'm not willing to do 90-minute workouts. And you were like, that's fine, because you currently don't need to do 90-minute workouts. Let's have you do 45-minute workouts and just get really freaking good at that. And 3 months later, like, hey, she's not missing a 45-minute workout, and she's now done more time working out, like, overall than she would have done before, when she was doing 90 for 1-2 weeks, stopping for 3-4, 90 again for 1-2. And now she has sustainable health with that and results.
Interesting enough too. So with this client, and we've seen this with a few people, is she had a goal of working out 5 days a week with those 90-minute workouts. And so typically when someone has a goal that big, well, ask them first, like, is this something you have been doing? Have you been doing it consistently? And how long have you been doing it consistently? Oftentimes people will be very adamant when they first start, getting into a new fitness plan that they have to stick to 5 days. And it's like, okay, if you're adamant that you can follow it, prove it, show me.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're able to maintain it, that's awesome. If not, it's like, okay, then let's bring it down to 3. If you cannot manage 3, let's bring it down to 1 and get really good at that 1. And so there may be times when you're finding what your non-negotiables are that you may need to adjust. I mean, mine has adjusted over time to where we have kind of found that flexibility between how much we make at home, how much we, for example, we discovered a local butchered beet meal prep service in which it's like, you know what? That would be an awesome thing to integrate like once a week, to where it's like we're still technically doing homemade, but we're opening up and getting some help.
Yeah. And it substitutes one of our eating out days, and it's a way better choice as well.
And we know exactly what's in it. So it's finding that adaptability. And so in tying into the non-negotiables, what do you do when, say, they're impossible to reach? Maybe you set the perfect plan, you maintained it for 3-4 months, and then everything hits the fan. So what then?
Take a step back. Don't feel like you need to start over at all. That is, when you feel like you need to start over, that's when you're probably not going to start over, because the emotional weight of starting over, feeling like you failed, it's gonna trump your potential success. It's gonna overtake you and be like, if you had to start over, that means you're not great enough. So imagine how many more times you're gonna have to start over. No, just look at, okay, this is how far I've came. This is what I've been able to do. Yes, things hit the fan, but now let me take that same plan and readjust it now on terms that are going to help me when things hit the fan again. And those are my, it might feel like a 180 change of things, or it might just feel like a few little things that you had to remove, a few little areas of wiggle room that you had to change. And it's not to justify a non-disciplined mindset, is to provide you with more consistency in the long run for success, for happiness in what you're pursuing.
And there's a very big difference too between a reason versus an excuse. So reason, I feel like it might happen occasionally, but if it's constantly coming up, if it's a pattern, it's slowly turning into excuse, and you may have to kind of reevaluate where you're at. I want to use the example of, say, a bank and investing, because investing. We got some money-minded people out there. So say you decide that you want to build up your savings account, and you decide, I'm going to invest $100 a week, every single week. So maybe for the first month, 2 months, you do pretty good. You're able to put it in there. And then you hit 1 month where, you know what, that $100 gets a little bit harder. And maybe another month it gets a little bit harder to hit it. Are you just going to burn your entire bank account and decide, you know what, it's not even worth it, none of that money even matters? Or maybe are you going to decide, hey, instead of $100, I'm going to invest maybe just $50, $25, $5. And although that feels like a smaller amount, it may take you longer to build up that savings account. That will add up over time. $5 over a year will add up.
Right. We're so caught up on the instant. We have a phone that has like instant everything. We want an answer to something, we Google it. We want to watch a movie, we no longer have to go to Blockbuster or go to Redbox. We just instantly can watch it on whatever streaming services.
If you're hungry, you just order Uber Eats. You don't even have to talk to people now.
Exactly. We're so accustomed to the instant that we really need to remember, like, things like this aren't instant at all. And it is going to be that your wealth, your health wealth is going to, the investment will pay off if you're just consistent. Even if you go, like you said, maybe a month that you didn't put that into your savings account, it's going to help you out. I promise you.
And if you're not really sure where to start, like I mentioned earlier, look at what you're already doing and focus on one thing you want to get really good at. So if you've been able to maintain walking 2 miles every single week, twice a week, push yourself to maybe walk 3, or you add an additional day in. If you want to get better with intaking water, then you keep track of how much water you're drinking. If you want to cut back on alcohol, set a limit of I'm only allowed to have 32 ounces. These non-negotiables shouldn't be something that keeps you from living your life. It should be something that improves your quality of life.
I mean, and I feel like I keep restarting the topic, but real quick, like, don't look at it so much as that I'm only allowed to have the many ounces. I know we don't drink alcohol, but it is a common thing that people want to like socialize and drink alcohol. And it's okay, if you're going to drink alcohol, your non-negotiable list, you got to make sure that that day you've had a good meal that is prioritized over protein and had some fibers. That way your body's consuming some really nutritional dense food, and then you can enjoy that amount of ounces that you said, 12 ounces, 16 ounces, and look at it that way. And then if you don't, let's say you have a day where you didn't have the non-negotiable lunch, then that's when you're like, okay, well, because I didn't meet my non-negotiable for the amount of food that I was going to have before alcohol, then I gotta make sure I restrict myself to less than my original because I didn't meet my non-negotiable.
Or even I just make sure I eat a meal before going
or
out.
Or after, but something like that.
It's finding simple solutions.
And it's those simple solutions that are going to change your life, that are going to give you consistency, and that are going to give you the results that you want. So appreciate you so much.
Thank you guys for listening. If there's anything that stood out to you, make sure to go ahead and share it with a friend. Throw us, a like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Remember, you guys, it is all about finding fitness and health at your current level, elevating your way on up. Can't wait for you guys to continue this conversation. Until then, stay golden.
All right, guys. Cheers.